A new report from Punchbowl News says that Amazon is looking to avoid the blame for raising prices as a result of President Trump's new tariffs.
Garrett, key White House officials were pressed about these tariffs and this new Amazon move just last hour. What did they say?
Yeah, on the tariffs more broadly, you heard some optimism that there could be trade deals struck in the not too distant future from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who talked about the use of what he called euphemistically the president's strategic uncertainty.
We'll take this since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years?
It started quietly. Just a line in a policy draft, buried deep in a late-night announcement from Washington. But within days, the consequences would shake the foundation of American business in a way no one had anticipated. By the time the public understood what had happened, Amazon, the company that practically defined America's digital age, was already preparing its escape route. The moment Donald Trump reinstated the tariff expansion package and removed the decades-old Dominus rule, everything changed. Overnight, import protections Amazon relied on, protections that had allowed it to keep prices low and shipping fast, were wiped away. Nobody in Seattle believed the administration would actually go through with it. Not after the warnings, not after the meetings, not after the economic models showed the damage. But the White House was determined, and Amazon, with its billions of units moving through ports every year, got hit the hardest. When the tariffs kicked in, Amazon's import costs didn't just rise a little, they exploded. A 145% spike across electronics, home goods, and essential consumer products. Suddenly, items that cost Amazon $3.40 per unit were costing over $8. Items that moved by the millions. And the numbers didn't take months to appear. They hit instantly, brutally, without warning. That was the moment Amazon realized it was facing something bigger than a political storm. It was facing survival. Inside the company's South Lake Union offices, executives watched red numbers flood across internal dashboards. Forecasts showed projected losses reaching $13 billion within 18 months if the company stayed in the United States under the new tariff regime. It wasn't just unsustainable, it was catastrophic. And so, Amazon did something no one expected. It began displaying a small, almost invisible line of text under product prices. Tariff impact, a warning, a signal, a quiet form of protest. Within hours, social media erupted. Screenshots spread like wildfire. People couldn't believe it. Amazon was publicly blaming the president's tariffs in real time, and the White House didn't appreciate it. Insiders say Trump exploded when he saw the screenshots. The message was clear. Amazon was challenging the administration, shaping public opinion, and exposing the costs of the tariff war. Senior officials demanded Amazon remove the label immediately, but Amazon refused. That's when the political pressure began. Investigations, hearings, public rebukes, a coordinated effort to box Amazon in and force compliance. But inside Amazon's walls, something else was happening. Something secret. Something they hoped would never leak. They called it Project Silver Compass. Just a name. A code name whispered in late-night conference rooms overlooking the dark waters of Lake Union. A relocation contingency plan. A blueprint for what the company would do if the United States became too hostile, too unpredictable, too expensive to operate in. Nobody outside of 24 people knew about it, not even most senior vice presidents. It was the kind of plan Amazon hoped it would never use. But those hopes didn't last long. As the tariffs intensified, Amazon's models grew more dire. Not only were they projecting $13 billion in losses, they were now calculating consumer backlash as prices rose, supplier collapse as smaller partners couldn't keep up, and internal layoffs as operating costs surged. Seattle began to feel the tremors first. Small tech firms that relied on Amazon contracts froze hiring. Restaurants near the Amazon campus, usually overflowing with workers, started to empty out. Delivery contractors saw routes shrink. The city, which once bragged about having one of the fastest-growing economies in the United States, was suddenly staring at the possibility of a collapse. And inside Amazon, Project Silver Compass, once a distant contingency, became the center of every meeting, every strategy session, every whispered conversation in hallways long after midnight. The plan laid out 4 possible escape destinations: Singapore, Ireland, Canada, the UAE. Each country offered something different: lower taxes, streamlined logistics, aggressive incentives, political stability. The race was on, not just for Amazon to choose a new home, but for those countries to win the biggest relocation deal in corporate history. Singapore offered speed, fast permits, fast construction, and full digital infrastructure. Ireland offered tax advantages in an established tech ecosystem. Canada offered proximity to the US market and a friendlier political environment. And then there was the UAE, offering something no one else could match: land, money, and a proposal rumored to be worth billions. Behind closed doors, UAE officials presented Amazon with a staggering relocation package, an offer powerful enough to make every other nation nervous. Tax holidays lasting over a decade, a custom-built logistics zone near Dubai's global port system, government-backed construction of data centers, regulatory fast lanes, even private infrastructure projects dedicated exclusively to Amazon's supply chain. It was a deal so massive that it began circulating through global financial circles before it even became public. But in the United States, the White House saw it differently. To them, it wasn't an international competition. It was betrayal. Rumors swirled that the administration quietly reached out to Amazon's board, threatening additional scrutiny, new investigations, new regulations, anything to stop the company from leaving. But the numbers didn't lie. Staying meant collapse. And so, Amazon kept planning. Night after night, teams stayed in offices long after the city went quiet, staring at maps, charts, currency models, legal frameworks. Every meeting felt heavier than the last. Every decision felt monumental. Executives rarely slept. Some stayed on couches inside Amazon's headquarters. There were nights when the lights on entire floors stayed on until sunrise. Nights when security guards reported hearing voices behind conference room doors at 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Seattle, once the crown jewel of Amazon's empire, was becoming a city of whispered fears and invisible deadlines. And then came the leak, a single document shared anonymously with a European journalist. Amazon had initiated Stage 3 of Project Silver Compass. The relocation was no longer theoretical. It had begun. The world reacted instantly. Stock markets shuddered. Foreign governments rushed to confirm or deny their involvement. Media outlets ran nonstop coverage. Analysts warned that if Amazon left, other companies might follow. Some even predicted a new era of corporate flight away from the United States. And inside the White House, anger turned into panic. A meeting was called, one that sources later described as combustible. Advisors argued, economic officials warned of devastating consequences. Political strategists focused on optics. And Trump, he demanded Amazon be stopped. But no one could stop the math. Amazon's losses were real, the tariffs were real, the removal of the Dominus rule had shredded their supply chain, and the $13 billion collapse looming over the company wasn't a projection anymore. It was the future. When Seattle's mayor pleaded publicly for the federal government to reconsider the tariffs, it became clear the city was preparing for the worst. Amazon made up nearly 20% of downtown's economic activity. If the company left, the city could fall into recession almost overnight. Meanwhile, in Dubai, officials finalized the largest relocation offer ever extended to a private company. Billions in incentives, land carved out in strategic zones, a custom legal framework designed solely for Amazon's operations. It was bold, it was unprecedented, and it was frighteningly tempting. As global markets reacted, as analysts predicted shockwaves, as politicians pointed fingers and blamed each other, Amazon continued planning in silence. The company that once defined American innovation was now trying to outrun American policy. Employees felt the tension. Some feared layoffs. Others feared being forced to move overseas. Many felt betrayed, not by Amazon, but by a government that seemed determined to push the company out. By late autumn, Seattle's streets felt different, quieter, heavier. The restaurants weren't as full, the buses weren't as crowded. The energy that once radiated from Amazon's campus had dimmed into something colder, more uncertain, more fragile. And inside the company, as the nights grew longer, the meetings grew more urgent. The decision was nearly made. The only question left was timing. When the final estimates came in, when the projected U.S. operating loss crossed the $13 billion threshold, something in the room shifted. One of the executives reportedly said, "This isn't a business anymore. It's a bleeding wound." And then came the final argument, the one that sealed the company's fate. "It's not whether we should leave," one strategist said. "It's whether we can survive if we don't." That was the moment Amazon's leadership realized the United States was no longer a safe bet, no longer predictable, no longer the center of global commerce. All that remained was a country at war with its own economy. By the time the public learns the full truth, Amazon's decision may already be locked in. Planes may already be preparing to move teams overseas. Land deals may already be signed. Data centers may already be marked for shutdown. And as the shock waves ripple through Seattle, through Wall Street, through the global markets, one question will hang over everything. If the world's biggest company can no longer survive in America, what does that say about America? Because maybe this isn't just Amazon leaving. Maybe this is the beginning of something larger, something irreversible, something the nation never expected to face so soon.